Hey everybody, welcome to Sam's Doing Stuff. What am I doing today? Well, we're gonna put a man door on this old barn. So not only is it a real convenience to have a man door to come in and out of a garage or a barn such as this, so you don't have to lift the garage door up and down, but it's also a code requirement for any garage or residential structure that's used as a garage to have at least a one hinge-sided door, usually 32 inches or more, and that's just for safety, for egress, in case there's an emergency, and it's especially true for an attached garage. Obviously this isn't attached, this is a barn, but it still should have one. So I like this corner over here, particularly because there's a big hole over here and I'll be able to eliminate that hole by putting the door in its place. But it'll be convenient for access from the outside. It's out of the way. This area over here really isn't used for much, just gets cluttered. So this will be where we put it. And just so you know what we're working with, this is a Geldwin steel exterior door, 36 inches wide, pre-hung. So the frame around the door is already there. All we have to do is put in the rough opening and hang it. Now, if you're dealing with new construction, this is easy. You'll have your framing done as the building is being built. But this building is an old barn. I'll put up a picture of what this place used to look like. And we've been fixing it up as best we could as we go along. So we just recently had this garage door installed, and now I want to put this man door in, but I have to work with the existing structure. So where do we start? Start at the bottom. Now, just so you can see what I'm starting out working with here, we've got a typical pole barn structure with poles and then girts. And I've got a couple of cross braces here, 45s to, obviously to brace it. And there's girts going all the way down. And then there's this that's kind of holding this old water pipe. I'm gonna have to demo that, get that out of there, get all this extra stuff out of the way. And then we've got some 1-inch tongue and groove boards across the bottom, just for stability. And then we got a bunch of holes, but anyway, first thing to do is demo. We're gonna get rid of all of this. All right, all the junk's out of the way. This is a nice, clean area to start. Remember, we're looking for a base. The bottom is the most important part to start with. Now, you might already have concrete poured. Most of this barn, well, some of this barn has concrete poured. It's a mess. I'm actually glad they didn't pour concrete over here because they did such a poor job of it that I would have had to jack something up, I'm sure. So we're gonna start with a 6x6. I'm starting with a 6x6 because the posts on this barn, or the poles, are 6x6s, and this will match up nicely in between them, and it'll give me a really solid base to start with. Now, I'm planning, this is the way it's gonna work out, that wherever the 6x6 lands, when I pour, don't pay attention to this concrete, that's gonna be covered. When I pour finished concrete, it will be up to the bottom of that, and the threshold of the door will be sitting on top of this. So I'll have concrete nice and level, smooth, perfect concrete, right up to my door. Yeah, I think the best way to measure something like that is to measure it in place, set it in place and mark it right where it goes, because in my mind, sometimes measurement and reality can be different. That's perfect. You can see here now, this is going to give us a perfectly level, sturdy base for our door. That's the whole point. Let's start with a good base. So to hold it in place, we're going to toenail or, you know, sink these in at a 45 degree. They're going to go from the corner here straight through and hold into that 6x6. Now, you can't just drive these. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. So we're going to pre-drill these all the way in, and then I'll use a lubricant on the screw, get them all the way in. Oh, we're going to countersink them too, because this finished surface, I want it to be smooth, because I might put siding on this at some point, or at least, I don't know, it's probably a good idea to just countersink them. We are dead on, perfectly level, and yeah, there's space under it over here. It sits on top of this old concrete. Once again, I'm going to pour concrete all the way to the top of that, and all this over here will just get filled in underneath. Now, this will slope all the way down to where this existing concrete is, so it'll come up gradually, but this underneath the door here will be perfectly level, and it'll be good for our door. Now, we got to cut a hole. Now, I already did all the hard part, and that's the measuring, okay, but just to give you an idea of what we're working with here. So you've got girts that go across. These are 2x6 girts, which are pretty substantial. And we need to cut those out to the size of the hole for the door. But we're not just cutting it out to the size of the hole for the door, we're cutting it out to the outside edges of the frame, of the door frame. So I'm using a 36-inch door, so you cut a 38 by 82 inch wide opening. That's your rough opening that your pre-hung door will fit into, okay? But we have the door, the framing that goes around the pre-hung door frame, and that is going to be a king stud and a jack stud, which is 3 inches on each side. So you add that 6 inches to your 38, and you're at 44 inches. That is the width of the opening we have to create in our wall here, where our girts are, to fit our framing for our door. If that makes all the sense in the world. Hopefully it does. Now, you can use your 4-foot level and make sure this is plumb. You can use a plumb bob. You can use all kinds of things. I've chosen to use a laser. I think a laser is the most accurate tool you can use for doing something like this to make sure it's perfectly plumb. So we're at that 44 inches. Remember, we need a full width of 44 inches to fit the framing for the door, which then gives us a rough opening for our pre-hung door. So I'm going to double check in between my marks here that I have the 44 inches that I need, and I do. Now I'm going to line my laser up with my lines. So here's what my marks look like, okay? I started with, well, here's the king stud, here's the jack stud. Some of these marks, like right here, this is where the rough opening is going to be. This outside is where the brick molding is going to end. So I did a lot of pre-measuring on where the siding on the outside lands, exactly where I wanted to put this door. But the important part right now is that the outside right here, where the king stud is going to be, is where that laser is. That's where my cut is going to be, from the bottom all the way up through the top girt. All right, we've got all of our cuts made on our girts here to make our opening for our frame. Now we've got to pry these girts off very carefully. We don't want to damage too much. All right, that's one. That's two. Now for these bottom ones, we're on the outside, obviously. On the bottom ones, we got to come outside here, and I used my level, and I made a line right across. That is exactly the same height as that 6x6 inside. So that's the line we need to cut next. Right there. Okay. There we go. Well, now it's certainly starting to look like something we got a hole in the wall at least, because we're going to need a hole to put the door in. That's going to be, of course, the very base where that sill goes, but we've got to frame in what we cut out to strengthen it so that it can accept the framing for the door. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm cutting these pieces in to kind of create the outside framing that our door framing will go up against. It just adds some strength to the wall since we cut out all those girts. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we're measuring in between the girts and just putting this in. So I'm gonna toenail these in. Just wanna give you, this is a little side note. You'll notice I use a lot of DeWalt tools. I had a DeWalt framing nailer and it the bed. So I'm not gonna put good money after bad, that's for sure. So I decided to go with Milwaukee and I really like it so far. So anyway, we're just gonna get these attached. Now we're really starting to make progress here. So we've got our framing in. It's just kind of, it's like rough framing. Now we're ready to build our actual framing for the door. You've got your king studs, your jack studs, 2 top plates, but it's not going to be the same way as if you were building brand new construction. So we got to kind of piece this together, and we're going to use that stuff that we just put in, this framing that we just put in to attach everything to. So we're going to start with the king studs and the top plate. Like I say, we're going to put these up right inside of our rough framing. We're going to make sure they are perfectly plumb, and we're going to screw them in place. I like using screws for door frames because there's less variables, less chance of it wiggling and jiggling over time, and then all of a sudden your door doesn't open or close. So, all right, let's get these in. And there you have your door frame. So what I did, after making this rough framing on the outside, I had something to attach my king studs to, and I built it backwards. Typically on a framing for a doorway, you'd build your whole wall and set the thing up and the door would be built into it. But because we have a wall built here first, I put the king studs in, put the top plate on, so that was all in place and it was all plumb. Then I can put my jack studs with my second top plate, or the inner top plate, I guess, if you will, and get that in place, and it is 100% plumb and perfect. We have a doorway, rough opening that should be 38 inches wide, 82 inches tall. Yep, right there. Yeah. So all we gotta do is cut a hole and we can put our door in. All right, so I drilled holes up where the top, there they are, right there, and right there, top of the door frame, and obviously I can see where the bottom of the door frame is. So I'm just gonna mark a line, and I think the easiest way is just use a circular saw and cut that frame out here. Should just come out. Yeah. Look at this coming in and out of a doorway. Oh, it's nutty. Set the bottom in. All right, we're done.
Door, look at that.
Oh boy. We're going to mark around the brick molding because I want to cut the siding so that this sits back in. It won't sit right otherwise. So I think it's the right thing to do. It's primer on it anyway. Got it? Lift it up. There you win. There we go. Well, there it is. It's a door, complete with a working deadbolt, and it latches and it opens cleanly. It's oh, I should take that sticker off. Yeah, it's beautiful. This video is really more about the framing than the door installation, so just go over that a little bit. Once again, think about this. This is a wall that was never intended to have a door in it. If they'd built this barn, well, they'd have pre-framed it, like I said before. But this works, okay? It's not your conventional framing for a doorway, but it's every bit that it needs to be. And just to give you a close-up look at it there, there's your double header. We got jack stud and king stud. Everything is solid as a rock. And I think it was a really good idea using that 6x6 at the bottom to give it a good solid base. But yeah, it works. I can come in and out of here without having to open that garage door and let all the heat out. A couple of things about the outside installation. I decided to sink this in beside the siding. I'll probably caulk this, but I wanted that in like that. It looks so much nicer than to have it sticking out too far. The top of it has a nice piece of drip edge up there. Keep the water from getting behind it because of course that would freeze and mess up the whole works. So it's a really, really good installation here, and I am just thrilled with it. Yeah, so this is going to be part of a series here. This is the first step in trying to winterize this barn as best as I can, you know? I'm going to get it better than it is. That's every step is to get it better than it is. If you like what you saw today, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, you know, all the buttons. And yeah, you can follow along because like I said, it's the beginning of a series. Next step, I think I'm gonna start on the west wall, the wall with the garage door on it. And we're gonna try and seal that up a little bit more. If you got any hints or tips, you can leave them in the comments. It'd be greatly appreciated. But otherwise, you gotta come back. You gotta hit the notifications so you know that you'll see me next time when I'm doing more stuff.